Thank you very much, President Little Willie. I used to know him when he worked under the name of Bernie Eccleston, you know. Did you know that? Yes, what a thrill to be working in the garden department of Home Base. It's really good. I got this phone call. God, it's got to be now, what, about 6 months ago. From this guy, nice man. I liked him immediately. You know, when you get phone calls from people that you don't know, you get a good impression right at the start. I liked this man. He was nice. He was warm. He was friendly, and I obviously liked him. I wouldn't have accepted the transfer charge call in the first place if I hadn't. But he said, "Is that Mike Craig?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Oh, thank God." He says, "Listen, Mike, please." He was desperate. Please, he said, please say you're available on the 15th of March 2002 to come along and entertain what will undoubtedly be one of the greatest audiences you have ever had the joy of standing in the presence of. He said, "I can promise you, Mike, these people are warm, friendly people. They're lovely people. They're generous. They like to laugh and scrape their chairs. They're warm. They're like-minded people." And he said, "I'll tell you this, Mike. When I tell them you are coming, they are going to be delighted." Tragically, I had to say no, because only a week earlier I promised Little Willie that I'd come here and talk to you lot. Anyway, I thought it might be nice tonight to have a theme for the evening, and there's no question of what the theme is going to be. It is going to be chair scraping its place in British comedy. No, it is going to be President Little Willie. Hello, is there any problem over there? You all right, sir? Don't worry about a thing. We all remember our first glass of cheap red wine. Now, no, seriously. I thought it might be nice to choose a theme, and my theme will be President Little Willie and his contribution to the Hamble Valley Rotary Club over many, many years. His contribution to the charity work they do, his all-round enthusiasm to everything that he throws himself into. So in conclusion, enjoy the rest of the evening and have a safe journey home. No, he's a good lad, is your president. I'll tell you this for nothing. Did you know he's an authority on women? Oh, yes. Authority on women. Sadly, the women don't know this. But the authorities do, and I think that's the His boyish looks, of course, do belie his real age. And his height. But that's how we know. That man that poses as your president, Bernie Eccleston, he was in no small way responsible for the total success of the D-Day landings. He didn't go. No, he's all right. He's an old friend. Not to mine, but he's... you may not know this, and it's something that I'm surprised you don't know. He told me, but he probably is a bit ashamed of it. I don't know. He was born into a show business family, was young Bernie. Born into a show business family. His mother and father used to work at the back end of the old Variety music hall, you know, and they had what we called in our business a Romany act. A Romany act, right? You get that? A Romany act. His dad used to wear an earring, which Little Willie does now and again, by the way, when he goes out on his own, but that's his business. Nothing to do with me at all, you know. His dad used to put the earring in and get the gypsy fiddle and play the gypsy songs, while his mother went around the audience selling pegs and lucky white heather. And one night at the Apothecary's Hall in Cleckheaton, Little Willie's mother gave birth to Little Willie on stage. And it went so well, they kept it in the act 12 years. Right true. No, he's all right. I tell you this for nothing. You lend him £2,000 and don't see him for a year, it'd be worth it. You know what I'm saying? I love posh dudes, you know. I've been to a few and met a few. In show business, which is the business I am in, unlike Bev here, who is sort of an amateur at it, in show business, we're all a little bit stage struck. I still am. I'm still stage struck. I'm still starstruck. I take autograph books and get autographs of famous people, and it's always nice to show off. And I show off a little bit about this because it happened quite recently, and I met the greatest megastar I think there's ever been in our country, and it's only last October, the third Saturday in October. I was speaking at a dinner. It was a posh do. I mean, this has been lovely, Willie. Lovely. This has been, lovely with the, the lights and the candles and the conjurer. It's been lovely. Really nice. But this was a posh do. It was at the Savoy Hotel in Pontefract, and it was the annual dinner of the West Riding of Yorkshire Second-Hand Car Dealers Association. And indeed it was the third Saturday in October, because the second-hand car dealers always have their dinners on that day, because that, as you know, is the day that they put the clocks back. You know, I thought that'd be too subtle for you lots, I really did. Anyway, at this dinner for the West Yorkshire Second-Hand Car Dealers Association, sitting on the top table, only 4 places away from me, was a childhood hero. Quite remarkable, unbelievable. Never ever thought I would say hello and be introduced. The one and only Gracie Fields. Well, there you are. He told me he was Gracie Fields. He stood up in the middle of my act and he said, "If you're an after dinner speaker, pal, I'm Gracie Fields." I love funny lines, you know. I'm into funny lines in a big way. I like comedy's not about jokes, you know, as Bev Smith will appreciate, you know. Ever heard him tell one, you'll realise it's not very funny. No, it hasn't. It's basically, comedy is about funny lines said by anybody. People around these tables can have said a funny line tonight, you know, in the situation. It's all about saying it in the right place at the right time. Timing is everything. Timing is absolutely amazingly important in comedy. It is the backbone of comedy, is timing. As a Yorkshireman, you know, we and Lancashire pride ourselves in producing comics, because I am a Yorkshireman, and you can always tell a Yorkshireman, but you can't tell him much. Yeah, I mean, I did come back from this cruise the other day, the day before yesterday, and it was amazing, you know, and you can always find the Yorkshireman on cruise ships. When you're in the market, it doesn't matter whether it's the Casbah in Casablanca or Bloomingdale's in New York, shopping, you can always spot where the Yorkshireman is with his war cry. It suddenly comes out, "How much?" But it's timing is the most important thing. Eric Morecambe was probably the best timer of a line that I ever worked with, and he stayed with my wife and I at my house in Dewsbury in 1976. Because when you get on in Batley, where I was born, you go and live in Dewsbury. It's only a mile down the road, but it's a giant leap for mankind. Batley is lovely. It's, well, it's sort of difficult to describe Batley to an audience of... Stuck for a word here, Bernie. Civilised people. But during the war, a squadron of German bombers left Berlin with instructions to bomb Liverpool. And this is all true and documented. One of these bombers had faulty navigation equipment and he got lost, and for 3 days it bombed Batley. did 8 quid's worth of damage. But timing is everything, you see. And Eric Morgan was staying with us. We had lunch this particular Saturday, and after lunch we went into one of my lounges. And 3 of us, Eric, myself, and a bottle of Southern Comfort. And we sat in chairs facing each other, and a lovely coal fire there, drinking the Southern Comfort, you know, and the vapour of it was sort of, oh, it was marvellous. Slowly getting very, very mellow, and I suddenly realised in front of me was Eric, the best timer of a line. Now, nobody has defined comedy timing, because it's abstract, you see. It's an abstract thing. It's like beauty. You know it when you see it. Timing, you know timing when you've just experienced it. And so I asked Eric, I said, Eric, come on, if anybody can define comedy timing, you can. And he was good at this, you see, Eric. He was a great thinker, a wonderful, quick thinker. I said, come on, Eric, what is your definition of immaculate comedy timing? And I can see him now. He took another little swig of Southern Comfort. He said, that's a good question, Mike. Timing. He said, timing, Mike, in my opinion, is Des O'Connor getting out the stage door before the audience can get round from the front. Funny line. Wonderfully funny line. You see, if you get your eyes open, you'll see some marvellously funny lines. All innocent, but really funny. I saw one not long ago, before I went on the cruise. I was out in Wharfdale, going up to see some friends of ours, and there, as we turned the corner, the farmer had shoved this great big piece of hardboard in the hedgerow, and on it he'd written, homemade sausages, 200 yards left. I just explained that to this table here. Funny line. I remember vividly when I was a kid in Dewsbury, there was a butcher's shop. Now, you see, I never thought this was funny, but it is. It wasn't funny when I was a lad, but it is now. Since all the foot and mouth and the CJB, or what is it, VPL, is it Visible Panto? That's not it, is it? MFI, I can't remember. But, you know, since then, this has become a very funny line, but it was a slogan that our butcher's shop had, and they made wonderful pies and potted meat. And they had a little slogan hanging in the window on 2 chains in a little glass box that lit up. And it was their slogan. You'd never put this in your chip shop, in your meat and potato pie shop today in a month of Sundays. It said, eat our pies, you'll never get better. Funny line. There was one on Dewsbury Station which was quite good. It was advertising the ferry across to the continent. And it was a ferry pulling out of a famous poster, this, pulling out of the harbour with a little choppy sea and a few seagulls. And there it was. And the slogan was, Folkestone for the continent. And somebody chalked on the wall next to it, Eastbourne for the incontinent. Now, I didn't understand that. But this lady here understands it, so that tells you something, doesn't it? No, I think the best I ever saw was about, it must be 18 years ago now, in Cheshire. And you've all seen this. You've all seen this road sign. Wherever you come from, north, south, east or west, or parts of Surrey. Oh, we'll get to Surrey soon, don't worry. Oh, yes, we certainly will. If anybody's from Surrey, I suggest you go now. No, seriously. I do go to Surrey quite a lot to speak, because I've always felt I was put on this world to do missionary work. So we'll get round to that later. This is a sign you've all seen. It's a homemade road sign put up by the farmer. And you're driving along a country lane and you've all seen it. Coming at you, towards you, through the windscreen. You know, it's a brush handle or a bit of 2B1 or whatever it is now we've gone metric. I'm not going metric. I'm not going metric. No, I am not. Can anybody in this room tell me how long a 33.5 centimetre putt is? It's a golf term, love. Did you know that? It's a golf term. I'm not going metric. I'm refusing. I've not gone decimal yet. I'll have to soon. I'm down to my last 4 threepenny bits, but there we are. And this is the sign as you're coming towards you. And it's on a bit of plywood like that, on top of the pole. And it's one word, that's all it is, one word. One word, it's always in white paint. I don't know why, always. And you've all seen it, coming towards you as you're driving along. Potatoes. I saw this in Knutsford, Cheshire, 15, 16 years ago. Somebody had written underneath it, twinned with pomme de terre. Wonderfully funny. I bought a bottle of mineral water in Norway, and it was called glacier water, and I thought it might be from the glacier, because we were near a glacier. It's true, and I said to the girl behind the counter, and they're lovely over there in all their national dress, you know. I said, do you mind me asking you, is this glacier water from the glacier, or is it just called that because it's made near the glacier? Oh, yeah, she said, yeah, because she came from Huddersfield. yeah. It is the glacier water from the glacier, because it comes all the hundreds of thousands of years in the ice flow, slowly into the glacier. And what they do is they collect it at the bottom. They do, this is all true, I'm not kidding on this. And as the glacier comes and falls off, they collect it, they purify it, treat it, put bubbles in it, bottle it and sell it. And I bought a bottle. And it wasn't until I got back on the ship that I read the label. And the label was unbelievable. It said, glacier water. This water is 6 million years old. Best by June 30th, 2001. And then there was Bradford. I had to go to Bradford on one occasion. I'd done nothing wrong. I just had to go there, you know. And I went to see the act I was interested in, a double act. And we had a bit of lunch, and I left them. And as I came out the stage door of the Alhambra Theatre, this little pickup truck, this little builder, was just turning round. And he's writing, pomme de terre, P-O-M-M-E, it is. De terre, T-E-R-R-E. Pomme de terre. You get it right. No, it's all right. No. I mean, you can buy the CD at the end of the evening, but it saves all. And besides, it was a nice serviette, that. Anyway, there was a little builder's van turning around, a little pickup truck. Now, in Bradford, you would expect a builder, a little general builder, to be called Jack Illingworth or Fred Sykes or something like that, or Joe Artstaff, anything like that. No, not this one. I couldn't believe it. It said on the door, Patel and Singh, General Builders. And I thought, well done. Initiative, well done. And I took my hat off to him. And it turned round and it disappeared. And as it went away, on the back of the little tailgate of the pickup truck, it was their slogan. It said, you've had the cowboys, now try the Indians. Brilliant. On the line. I'm doing comedy over there, I'm doing tragedy down here. I don't know. Funny line. I love drunks too. One of the best purveyors of a story about drunks is a man who you probably never heard of, but he did live not a million miles away from here. He was born in Leeds, but he went to live in Brighton, and then he settled in, initially, he settled in Wiltshire, and he ended up in Gillingham, where he died, but he was called Tom Menard, and I love Tom Menard. I did 150 radio shows with Tom. Brilliant comic who you'd never heard of. He was in Coronation Street. I managed to get him in there. I got the producer to come and look at him do one of my shows, and he bagged him and said he'd be perfect. But he got cancer and he died, and it's very sad because he was a lovely man, funny man. And he told stories and he painted pictures in the mind. And he always based his stories around the local pub that he went to every night, the Goat and Compasses. And his pals were called Charlie, Harry and Fred. And his stories were fantastic. And you will laugh at these that I'm going to tell you now. You'll laugh at them now, you'll laugh at them in the future. You'll laugh. Honestly, you will. You'll see something in the street tomorrow that's mentioned in the story and you'll laugh. And you'll sit up in bed and laugh. You will. Well, you will if you sleep with me. But Tom Menard created these wonderful pictures in the minds. And he said on this lovely routine about when they all got drunk, he said, as I approach the pub, I am 6 foot 2 inches in height, and this very large brass doorknob is 3 feet 1 inch from the floor. Yes, madam, you're quite right. The door opened outwards, just as I was about to grab it. It was Charlie. He came out at hell of a lick, the door banged into me, this doorknob got me midships, crushed me against the wall. He comes over, he says, "You're crying, have you had bad news?" I said, "Medically, yes." So we went in and we had, as usual, 8 or 9 pints, you know. We must have been making a bit of a noise because Bernard, the landlord, said, "Look, lads, they're complaining, you're making too much noise, you're taking all the room up at the bar. There's waiter service upstairs in that little room I've converted into a games room. There's skittles, there's bar billiards, darts, dominoes. Why don't you go up there?" So we said, "Right, we will." He says, "Don't let Charlie go up them stairs, he'll never make it the state he's in." So he says, "Shove him in that lift." So we did. Put Charlie in the lift, sent him up, we went up the stairs. When we got in, Charlie was just getting out of this lift, and he says to this passing waiter, he says, Waiter, it's a bit cramped in that lift." He says, "It is actually, Charlie, you're quite right. You see, normally," he said, "that lift only takes 2 plates of soup and a teapot." Anyway, we started and we had a game of skittles and we had a game of darts. With my first arrow, I hit a double, just as the fellow was putting it to his lips, actually. Anyway, it got to about 12:30 and Bernard comes up and says, "Look, lads, you're going to have to leave." And so we did. And we used the stairs this time. Well, I say we used the stairs, we only used the bottom 2. And we got out into our high street. Now, there is not a man in this room will argue with me when I say it is not the beer that makes you drunk. It's the fresh air outside. And believe you me, that night our high street were full of it. I looked down, there's Charlie laid across the pavement on his stomach with his fingers gripping over the edge of the curb, saying, "For God's sake, get a ladder, I can't hang on much longer." Fred Thornton is in front of this gas lamp, he's banging on it with his fist. He says, "I know they're at home, there's a light on upstairs." Harry Armitage, he's the worst of them all. He's on the corner, he's standing in front of this pillar box. He's been looking at the instructions on that little tin plate about 5 minutes. He gets a 10-pence piece out of his back pocket, shoves it in the slot hole for the letters, looks up at the town hall clock and says, "Good heavens, I've put on 2 stones since this morning." I mean, I'm just minding my own business, really. I'm climbing up this Belisha beacon to light my cigarette. Which is a damn silly thing to do because they don't stop on long enough. Anyway, it's Saturday night, and you see, every Saturday night we have what we call our system. It's a system, and it's a good system because it works. You see, with Fred living the farthest away, 1.25 miles in the suburbs, no street lights, me, Charlie and Harry walk him home to make sure he gets home safely. And when we've got Fred home safely, and only when we've got Fred home safely, does Fred then walk us home to make sure we get home safely. One Saturday night we didn't get home till Tuesday. Oh, but I mean, a couple of weeks ago we get to Charlie's, and I can see Charlie now standing in his drive, and he's searching his pockets and he's trying to find his key, and me and Harry are trying to find his front door. It's 2:30 in the morning, and he suddenly says this bit of news that we're all delighted to hear. He says, "I've left my key in our kitchen table." Well, that is a problem. Because if he has to ring that bell or knock on that door, her upstairs, who must be obeyed, will come downstairs, open the door, and the ball will be over the wall. Because their marriage is in a terrible state. It's very sad, really. We've seen it, crumble a bit, but now it's 5 years now. It's got to such. Well, you can tell what state they've got to. You can tell. It's got to such a terrible state that they've started putting their teeth in separate glasses. Anyway, he's looking up and he suddenly sees this skylight in the roof open about that much. He says, "I can get in up there." I said, "Charlie, how can you get up there? That's 30 feet from the ground. He said, because I've got a 40-foot ladder in that shed. I said, how can you get a 40-foot ladder in that little shed? He said, because I bought it last week and it collapses into 4 10-foot lengths, which it did. Charlie was on the 4th rung from the top when it did it. He lands in the privy terrace, the ladder clatters down, hits the drain pipe, the light goes on in the bedroom. The light goes on in the hall and the door opens and there she stands silhouetted in the hall. Hitler in curlers. With a rolling pin at the alert. Charlie's got it up here. Hey, hey. He says, hello, angel of loveliness. Aren't I a lucky man? He says, aren't I a lucky man? Is there another man as lucky as me in this village? Is there another man in this street who has a wife who'll get up at 2:30 in the morning to start baking? Ooh, she was livid she was. Ooh, she set about him. He said, just a minute, my darling, just a minute, essence of my existence. Fred, give us that bottle of stout in your raincoat pocket. He gives him this bottle, he knocks the top off on the window, so he said, for you, my love, a little gift. She said, I wouldn't touch that filthy muck if my life depended on it. He said, just have a sip. She had a sip, she spit it out all over the steps, all over the path. She said, that is the most revolting tasting liquid I have ever tasted in my life. And Charlie says, yes. And for some reason you seem to think we've been out enjoying ourselves. Funny man. Tom Menard, a very funny man. I was brought up on the wireless, because like some of the older people here, I used to listen to the radio when the radio used to be on the wireless. And I thought it was better when it was on the wireless. And of course I was brought up on Al Reid. And Al Reid was a funny man. I never ever thought I'd ever become a friend of his and produce his shows. Quite amazing, wonderful man. Remember Al Reid, who had characters that were from life? Comedy of life, you see, he was. Comedy of truth, you know. And there's a Johnny Know-All character he did who is so real. The loudmouth. There's one in every family, one in every office, one in every pub. There might be one on your table. She says there's 2 on ours. How about that? Now, Johnny Know-All. Al Reid met him in every possible situation, eh? Do you remember? Doctor's surgery waiting room in the old days. You know, not like now. You know, in the old days, when you went 8:30, there'd be 40 people sitting there, sniffing and sneezing, coughing and wheezing, and all reading magazines that were alive with bacteria. Not like today when you ring up and they say, well, you can't see you till a week on Monday. Yeah, well, I'll try and stay as poorly as I can then. No, in those days when you used to go in there was Al Reid into that arena of comedy. Who did he sit next to? The Johnny Know-All. You've met him. How do you do? Oh, how do you do? Have you come for advice about your health? Well, yes. Well, if you'll take mine, you'll go home while you've still got it. Well, I'm all right. Have you got your name down for a wheelchair? Oh, I don't need one of them. You will do by the time you see this fella. Well, I hope it won't be long. I'm a private patient. I don't care if you're a private detective. You're not going in front of me. Wait up for yourself. Wait up for yourself. There's all them up there, up that wall, round to that store, down behind that settee, up to that table, and down that wall to that woman in the purple hat. And then there's me. And you follow that bus driver with the black eye. And if you're thinking of pushing in, ask him, because he didn't have that when he walked in here. No jokes. Comedy of life. Outside Old Trafford, when Manchester United were playing City in the big local derby, eh? A minute to kick off. 53,000 in the grounds in those days, all standing shoulder to shoulder. And there's still about 30 at a turnstile trying to get in. In that queue is Al Reid. Who's next to him? The Johnny Know-All. Eh? How do you do? Well, how do you do? You're not trying to get in, are you? Well, I was trying to. You'll be lucky. I say you'll be lucky. Fella in front of me's just gone home and he's playing centre forward. Well, I don't know what to do. I thought I'd just try the terraces. No chance. Locked and barred half an hour ago. Are they full? Are they full? Hey, hear that, Tommy? Hey, 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 are they full? They're that full, or if he tries what to pay to get in, to get out. But that mounted policeman's been shouting his head off 20 minutes. Has he lost his temper? No, he's lost his horse. Oh, well, I don't know what to do. Do you live far? Yes, you'll never get home. Like a stampede out here when it blows full time. Oh, well, I'll make sure I'm first on the ground next week. I should set off now. They're playing Hungary away. No jokes, just a comedy of life. And wherever you come from, I get all over, as I told you. Surrey, and we're coming to Surrey soon. Hertfordshire, I've spoken in Bishop Stortford. Yes, I know. I love these places that are two names. I've got a thing about them. And Saffron Walden, I've spoken in, and Stoke Poges. I was at Stoke Poges just before the cruise. Yes, Stoke Poges. Just thought I'd mention it. Didn't tell them I were coming here, mind you, but there we are. No, it's lovely. I love these names like that, and there's others too, Melton Mowbray. It's all rather nice. There's one place, I meet a lot of people on cruise ships from this place, and I can't find it on a map. And it's a double-barrel sort of name, but I can't find it. I know it's down south. I know it's on the south coast, and it's a place called Hove, actually. Now, have we got some Hove actuarians in? Because this is where they come from, and you say to them, hello, nice to meet you. Are you from Brighton? And they say, no. Hove, actually. It's true. It's true. It's wonderful, is that? I like that. Bishop Stortford was great fun. Wonderful fun was Bishop Stortford. But Surrey was the best, I have to say. It was the mid-80s when I first went to Surrey, and I stayed with a pal of mine on the Friday night. And he was a comedy writer like myself, and he used to live in a place called Miles Platting, which is a double-barrel name, but it's not quite Stoke Poges. In fact, if you think Batley's bad, you want to go and have a look at Miles Platting, just north of Manchester. It's like a bomb site, you know. But when he got on with Coronation Street and one or two other things, he went to live in Surrey, which I think should be treasonable. Oh, I do, I'm sorry. No, that's too much. And he lived there, and I was staying with him that night, because I had a speech the next morning at lunchtime. And we had a few, slurps, like you do. And it got to 9 o'clock at night, and he made a suggestion that you would, to any house guest. He simply said these words, and they opened up the evening into I don't know what you call it, a close encounter of the Surrey kind. He said, do you fancy going down to the pub for a pint? I said, yes. He said, right, he says, I'll take you to this pub near Weybridge. Well, we had a Weybridge in Batley. Several Weybridges in Batley, as I recall. So I thought, well, this is a posh place. It's a nice pub. It's in the middle of a scrapyard. Subtle, isn't it, that one? I'm glad you like that. But I did that just for you, you see. Anyway, we went to this place. I've got to be honest. This was the most beautiful pub I have ever seen in my life. And the car park, every car a Rover. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I get £10 for saying that. I mean, it's simple. Yes, for every car that was in the car park as well, by the way, and there were about 300 of them, as I recall. No, it was the most beautiful pub I've ever seen. It was the pub. There is such a thing as the English pub, and the American tourists want to find them when they come to our country. They, hey, where's our English pub? Want to have a pint of English beer or an English pub? It's there, just outside Weybridge. It's beautiful. Thatched roof, one end to the other. Eyelids in the thatching where the bedroom windows are. Mullion windows down below. Crisscross leads on the glass. And behind every window a crimson table lamp offering a warm glow to invite you in. Beautiful pub. And that's the sort of pub that's on the Christmas cards, and it's there. And the American tourist, hey Marjorie, bring the camera, look at that. Isn't that something? Isn't that the one we have at home on the jigsaw? God, it is. Look, the piece we have missing, it's a seagull. That is old, Marjorie. We're looking at history there. God, that's got to be, 45, 50 years old, that place. And inside, the beams are just above your head. You know, if you're not careful and you're tall, you clout your head. And on the beams, there's all the polished horse brasses. On the walls, the copper hunting horns, the copper pans, copper kettles. Over there, a big wooden fire blazing up the fire back. And in the back room, in the snug, all the Weybridge locals are playing shove access. What was it called now? It was called the Porsche and Cellnet. And we went into this pub. Now, that was a mistake, because we were from a different planet. We were from planet Batley and Miles Platin, respectively. You know what it's like in your pub, anywhere except Surrey. On a Friday night at 9:30, there's hubbub, there's laughter, there's people enjoying, there's camaraderie, friendship, people shaking hands and saying, how are you keeping? Give my love to your mother. All that lovely community spirit. Not in this pub in Weybridge. No, if you'd have asked me who these people were in that pub, I would have said they were all members of the local Weybridge Amateur Ventriloquist Society. They were all speaking, but nobody's lips were moving. And all you could hear were people saying things like,
me having a thing on the garden, riding, George, you want to come round to the absolutely, into the garden, bloody thing blew up. Hello, darling, lovely to see you. Come and say hello. Mwah. Mwah. And so we were having a barbecue garden for a piece of champagne.
now you might think that mildly amusing. I think it's hysterical. But what is funny is that every person in that pub understood what everybody else was saying. And all the men in that pub had a jumper bought for Christmas. But when they were growing up, little lads, the mums had never shown them how to put them on. None of them knew that little hole was what your head went through. They all had them over the back of the shoulders with the sleeves tied round the necks. All except the women who had the sleeves tied around the waist. Now, I am told by people who know that this is a fashion statement. And I agree, because I know what the statement is. It is, look at me, I'm a prat. I mean, fashion over the last 15 years, ladies, you've looked, well, I don't want to upset you, but you really, grief, think about it. You know, you're walking up and down our high street in the last 15 years, there hasn't been a young girl who's ever heard of Max Wall. So why did they all want to look like it? Anyway, we're standing there in the middle of these people. Over there on the far wall is a bar, a long bar, and there's 3 ventriloquists serving behind the bar. And one of them has seen us come in, and he waves and he says,
hello. Hello.
I said, what the heck are we doing here? He said, we're going to walk through that lot and I'm going to buy you a pint. So we set off through these jumping ventriloquists. And, I said, excuse me, do you mind? Hello. And they were just,
What are these people?
and it was all that, and I felt a bit threatened. I felt really threatened, to be honest with you. I did. No, I felt threatened. And when I feel threatened in a situation like that, I have to tell you that Batley bubbles to the surface. When I got to this bar, I was ready for the joker behind it. I got there, he said,
hello, how can I get you?
So I says, now then, old lad, just have any decent ale in this here place. He said, oh, you're French, bonsoir. Anyway, it goes out 2 pints of whatever it is that passes for beer in Weybridge. And we paid for it, and we took a pace back and started drinking it and talking, me from Batley and him from Miles Platin. Right, sitting there, only 2 yards away at a little table, is an elderly ventriloquist with his doll, his wife. Sorry, his wife. Now, unlike the younger ones, he's interested in us. He can hear our twang, and you can see he's trying to attract our attention. You've been in this situation. I can see he's hovering and he's looking. All you need to do is smile and he'll be over. And I said to my mate, I said, the man behind me, Don't look at him. If you do, it'll be over. So he looked at him. And he said, you're right, he's coming. He came over, he brought his drink, which was unusual. First time I'd ever seen a grown man drinking green ink. He had half a glass of green ink with a purple umbrella sticking out of it, a little walking stick and a miniature Zimmer frame hanging down the side of the glass. In the green ink were radishes, pickled onions, daffodil bulbs, licorice all sorts, 3 humbugs and a Pontefract cake. And then there was the rhubarb, the celery and the Spanish onions, and he was sucking this through a straw. Round the top of the glass, mashed potato was piped. Anyway, it wasn't so much the drink, it was what he said that I will never ever forget as long as I live. He'd heard our twang, you see, and he came over and he said, where from? I said, what's he say? He said, where from? I said, sorry? He said, good God, which part of sorry? My colleague said, he means where we're from. Oh, wow, we are from, sir. I said, both the same place, this gentleman and I. We're from a place that is called the north of England. And there was a pause. And then he said this word, a word that everybody says. It's a terrible word. It's an awful word. And I've heard it tonight quite a lot, I'm afraid to say. It is a terrible word. They say it mainly in Surrey when they're neither impressed nor interested in what you've just told them. And it's a dreadful word. It really is. It's an awful word. It's nearly as bad as actually. He said, I said to him, we're from the north of England. And he said, really? Really? They're from the north of England, darling. And his wife said, really? Really? And he brought his wife over to look at us. Some friends over there, he says, oh, Sophie, he said, Camilla, Pongo, he had a friend called Pongo. They're from the north of England, and the Beverley sisters all said, really? Now the other people, once they hear the word really, it's like a clarion call going off, and they know something's up. And they say, what is it? They're from the north of England, really? So the word really is going around, and it's like an echo, a huge really echo all the time. He said, the north of England, he said, I've heard of it, of course. In fact, I do believe I've seen it on a panorama program. So what do you do? He said, without moving his lips, what do you do? I said, well, we both do the same thing. We're both comedy scriptwriters. He said, really? We're the comedy scriptwriters, Dorothy. And his wife said, really? Really? Comedy scriptwriters, Camilla? Really? By now they're closing in. And they're all closing in because suddenly we are a novelty act. You know, it's like at the Golden Mile at Blackpool. If you've got 2 heads, people will pay to look at you. And they're all closing in on us. He said, that's amazing. Comedy scriptwriting. How absolutely fascinating. What do you mean? So I told him, you know, as briefly as I could, what it was basically about. And it won't surprise you to learn that he said, yes, he did. Really? And he said, does everybody do this in the north of England then? Is this what they do up there? And I said, no, only the really very clever ones. And he said, really? And that was it. And by now we were the star turn of the evening. And we got talking about comedy because there was no humour in this pub at all. That was the one thing missing. There was no laughter. I heard one man laugh. Somebody told him a joke and he went, and that was it. That was it. The best joke in the world. So I said, look, in a pub where we live, by now, the place will be rocking. 10 o'clock. So I've got an audience, and they're all here, all looking, all saying, really? I said, I'll tell you a northern story. I said, you'll like it, it's good. So they all said, really, and I started. I got silence, and I said, right, it's Sunday morning in Halifax. Well, I'd lost them. I explained where Halifax was and what scene there was. I got them back again. I won them back. And this fella goes and knocks on his next door neighbour's door. And then when he answers, he says, "Hello, Joe." He says, "I want to borrow a lawnmower. Can I borrow it?" He says, "No." He says, "Why?" He says, "'Cause," he says, "I'm cutting my privet edge with it." He says, "You can't cut a privet edge with a lawnmower." The other fellow says, "You can do what the hell you like with a lawnmower if you don't want to lend it." This fella says, "Really?" I said, "Don't you think that's funny?" "Oh, you finished?" "No." "Good heavens, no, I don't think, and that's funny to you, is it?" I said, "Very funny." "No, I don't. What do you think, darling?" And his wife, who obviously was the, comedy correspondent of the Weybridge Bugle, said, no, that isn't funny at all. Not down here, certainly, because it's way off, you see. What you don't understand, if I may say so," she said, "is that down here we all have our own lawnmowers." I said, "Really?" The very nature of our comedy comes, of course, from the regions that we have, and the regions are the best thing that our country is about. Really are, honestly. And I can't help thinking that, the further up north you get, it starts really about Birmingham. Sorry to tell you this, it does. The Black Country has a very special comedy of its own. Probably Cornwall does, but I'm not really aware of that, but maybe it does. But the place I love the best of all, I have to tell you, is the northeast of England. I don't know if any Geordies in, anybody from up there. It is them. They are the best, fabulous comedy people. Oh, we're in, are we? Shall I tell you something? This is absolutely true. In Newcastle, there was one of the greatest comics we've ever produced, a man called Bobby Thompson. He was known as the Little Waster. And all you people here will never have heard of him, because he could only work in the northeast, because nobody could understand what he said anywhere else, which was tragic. But then along comes television with programs like The Likely Lads and When the Boat Comes In, and Off We the Same Pet, and Jimmy Nail, and now we've got an ear for the language, and we can quite talk, we can hear what they're saying and we can get the meaning and the rhythm of their speech and almost understand Gaza now, can't we? Well, this man died, of course, before all this really came to fruition. And it's tragic, because he was brilliant, this man. He had a couple of lines I love to quote. He said, and he was called the Little Waster because he was the voice of hardship. He came on with his hair all over the place, a day's growth on here, woodbine between the finger and the thumb, an old cream and maroon Gansey, that's an old jumper thick knit with the cuffs all fraying down here, brown corduroys and mucky brown boots. And he would stand there and he'd say, "The dole is my shepherd, I shall not work." He said, "I'll never forget the day I married our lass. I can see her now walking down the aisle backwards." Where you see you used to sell ice cream at the Odeon. Brilliant line. Brilliant. He said, "I'm in the town like the other day and I'm looking across the road and I see this woman walking down towards Marks and Spencer's. And I can't believe what I'm looking at. She's got the blouse undone and one of her bosoms is hanging out and she doesn't even know. And she's going in the shop. I thought I've got to tell the poor woman, she'll be embarrassed like." So I run across the road. I said, "Hey, pet, you don't mind me telling you one of your bosoms is hanging out your blouse?" She says, "Oh, Bobby, I've left the bairn on the bus." Brilliant, man. Brilliant, man. I want to quote you something from one of my books about Les Dawson. Look Back with Laughter, Volume 2, because it's very important that we remember people like Les. Les was a funny man. I was only thinking today, it's 18 years tonight since Tommy Cooper died on that stage, by the date. 18 years tonight. that he collapsed in front of that audience and died. And it's 18 years on May the 28th since Eric Morecambe died. And it is quite a long time, 1993, June the 10th, when Les Dawson died. And he made us laugh, did Les. And all these people had one thing in common, these comedians, these great comics. They all left school when they were about 14. Quite remarkable. Some left when they were 12, some of the earlier comics. Les left when he was 14. Do you know he lived in a slum in Collyhurst, Les Dawson? In a 2 up and 2 down. In Surrey, they think that's something out of the Kama Sutra. Did you know that? So a woman here says, so did I, she says. 2 up and 2 down with 1 tap. Les, his mother and father, his mother's mother and mother's father, and his mother's brother, Les's uncle Tom. 6 of them. With 1 cold water tap and a toilet outside, just a few yards away down the cobbles back alley. And he said it had been condemned 3 times when we moved in by Cromwell. His father, when he could get work, was the most menial of tasks. He was a bricklayer's assistant. Carried the hod and he mixed the cement. And his mother took him washing and went cleaning. But he had a lot of love from all the people in the house. He said we moved quite regularly, usually about 2:30 in the morning. But we only ever went from one slum to another. My mother never said we were moving. She used to say, and this is beautiful, we're making a fresh start. Eventually, he got to 14 and his mother made him work for the co-op. He had to work for the co-op. Manchester Co-op. She went and got him an interview. She says, you're going to work at the co-op, Leslie, because you'll have something your dad's never had. You'll have security. You'll be there for 50 years, and at the end of it, you'll get a pension and a gold watch. What does any man want more in life than that? And he got a job at the co-op in the electrical department, and he fused everything he put his hands on. And he ended up in the packaging department, packaging up parcels for delivery. But then the army came to his help, and he joined up because he had to. He went out there and he found a piano in the naffy, and he didn't know till he sat at this piano that he could play the piano. Some people are like that. They have an ear for it and they can do it, and Les could. And he was very, very popular. Very, very popular. He came out and he wanted to be a writer because this lad had always liked words. He was very fond of our English language. And we've got a great language, you know. We really have. We've got some wonderful words. I know it's difficult to learn and difficult to understand, but we have some wonderful words. We have words that are funny. Funny words. And Les loved funny words. He used to quote a lovely comic called Dave Morris, describing his daughter's wedding. She wore a lovely pale pink organza dress with a flounce and a 20-foot train in crepe de chine and freshly whitened pumps. And the freshly whitened pumps is the funny way of using our language, and Les loved all that. And he slowly clawed his way up. He went to Paris to become a writer, but he wasted all his money there. He spent up in about 3 weeks. Came home, he said, to get a job in Paris playing the piano in a brothel. He did. The Owl Romance. He said it was later pulled down to make way for a sewer. He said they only employed me to destroy the rhythm, but there we are. He came home and he worked for Hoovers, maintaining and selling Hoover vacuum cleaners and washing machines in a district called Moss Side in Manchester. Frightening. He said, I've been in cellars doing twin tubs with rats sitting over there watching me. One day, when it was quite hot, he went into a pub for half a mile, and they had a piano there. And he said to the landlord, anybody play this? He said, no. He pulled a chair up. Can I have a play? He said, of course you can. He played it, and within 2 minutes, people were coming in from the other lounges. And the man who owned the pub said, what are you doing tonight? He said, nothing. He says, come here, I'll give you 10 bob. And you have all the drink you want. And Les Dawson's show business career started that night. Amazing. He clawed his way to the very top, did Les. But when he was trying, he needed people who had faith in him. And I saw him die on his backside in a club in Oldham once, but I thought he was the funniest man I'd seen in years. You see, they loved his one-liners, but you can't do one-liners for 50 minutes. His one-liners about his wife and family, you know. I won't say the wife's ugly, but the milkman flirts with me, you know. You always tell when the wife's mother's knocking at the door, the mice are throwing themselves onto the traps. Mental pictures, wonderful one-liners. You know, he said, we bought the wife's mother a chair for Christmas, she won't plug it in. I won't say the wife's cooking's bad, but twice a month pygmies come over from Africa to dip their spears in a custard. I won't say she's ugly, but when she puts on makeup, the lipstick backs back into the tube. I met the wife in the tunnel of love. She was digging it. All these lovely And that great one-liner he wrote, which is the best of them all. He says, I won't say my doctor's old-fashioned, but when he lances a boil, he does it on horseback. And this audience in this club in Oldham liked that. They laughed. And then Les went off into his flights of fancy where he used our language. And they turned their backs on him and started talking. And he was brilliant. And I'm going to quote to you something that is so classic. You'll never hear better comedy than this. As long as you live, this is classic comedy. All because of our English language. And Les Dawson. This is the genius of the man. It's last evening I was sitting at the bottom of my garden enjoying a reflective cheroot when I chanced to look up at the night sky. As I gazed, I marvelled at the myriad of stars glistening like pieces of quicksilver cast carelessly onto black velvet. In awe I watched the waxen moon ride like an amber chariot across the zenith of the heavens towards that ebony void of infinite space wherein the tethered bulks of Jupiter and Mars hang forever festooned in their orbital majesty. As I stared in wonderment, I thought to myself, I must put a roof on this outside lavatory. Les would never come home drunk. He would say, an excess of the grape caused me to drift towards my front door like a bank of fog. As I fumbled in my pocket for the keys which opened the portals to my heavily mortgaged wimpy Valhalla. Wonderful use of our language, and this audience didn't like it. But there were one or two producers on radio and television who realised that here was something good, and they had faith in him, and he became a big, wonderful star, did Les. And his death on the 10th of June in '93 was a great, terrible shock to everybody who knew him. I have here, which I downloaded today, one or two things that some of them are a bit sad, really, but it's going to be in the papers tomorrow, most of this stuff. It's amazing on the internet now what you can do. This is very sad. This is terribly sad. In Salisbury, a man has been run over today by a mobile library. As he lay in the road screaming, the librarian rushed up to him and said, "Shh." I'm sorry. If you're going to laugh, I shan't read them. I'm sorry. Chancellor of the Exchequer said at a lavish banquet in the city last night that at the next budget he intends to double the old age pension and abolish income tax altogether. He then sang two choruses of Nelly Dean and was sick in a bucket. The Irish Minister of Transport has announced that as from next Monday all cars will drive on the right-hand side of the road. And if this is a success, the following Monday all the buses and lorries will do the same. Due to a strike of baggage handlers at Heathrow Airport, passengers have been asked if they wouldn't mind smashing up their own suitcases. A man in Batley, oh hello, has had his house moved 4 feet to take the slack out of his clothesline. This is ridiculous, is this? Leicester City managers announced that from now on, the rest of the season his side will play with their shirts on back to front. He said, at least it'll look as though we're attacking. During this recent cold spell, a flasher in Hyde Park described himself to two old ladies. I have to be quicker than this, you know. Seamus O'Reilly, the famous Irish stuntman, has failed in his attempt to jump 25 motorbikes in a double-decker bus. He said from his hospital bed, I would have done it if somebody hadn't rung the bell. And a man from Surrey has willed his brain to science. Science is contesting the will. And finally, a big reunion is planned in Dublin Airport when Paddy Murphy meets the brother who has been away for 45 years. Asked how he would recognise him after all this time, Paddy said, I won't have to recognise him. He'll recognise me because I haven't been away. Right, before I leave you, I will just dry out. And thank you for a lovely evening. And just tell you something that I never ever speak anywhere without mentioning. And that is the fact that I was introduced to laughter when I was 6 years of age by a man at the Dewsbury Empire. He was a comedian who came on that stage. And without this man, I wouldn't be here tonight, because this man became my hero. He was such a funny man. I was 6 and I could see why he was funny. And he was a man who many of you here will never have heard of, but that doesn't matter. His name, in all honesty, was Albert Modley. And Albert Modley was just a funny man. He was a Yorkshireman, a small man, flat cap, check suit, twinkle in his eye, chuckle in his voice, little tickle in his throat that used to, hey, how do you do? And that's how he talked. He was wonderfully funny. He never swore, he never used obscenities, he never did anything out of order. His comedy was daft, but it was funny. He walked to the footlights that night, and that audience loved him, and I'd never heard laughter before. You heard your parents giggling and your granny and grandad having a laugh, but that wasn't like 1,000 people laughing. And he came to the footlights and he said, how do you do? He said, I were in the country the other day, and I said to this here farmer, I said, oh, if I cut across yon field to the station, will I catch 4.15? He said, if bull's out, they'll catch 3.45. This is 61 years ago. Funny. Said there were two Yorkshiremen got in a railway compartment going from Leeds to Huddersfield, and they're sitting opposite one another, and one of them's got a sack on his knee and he's holding it tight at the top because it's moving, there's something in it. The other Yorkshireman says after 5 minutes, he says, can I ask you a question? He says, of course you can. He says, what you got in that sack? He said, ducks. Aye, ducks, I thought you might have. Aye, ducks. He says, can I ask you another? He says, of course you can. He says, if I can guess how many ducks you have in that sack, will they give me one? He says, if that can guess how many ducks I've got in this sack, old lad, I'll give thee both of them, he says. He says 7. I see we're from Batley as well. I have trouble with Albert Modley in Surrey, so I don't bother doing him anymore, because I've tried drawing pictures and it's no good. But there's one I think you might laugh. This is the tester, you see. This is the one. If you have a sense of humour, you'll love this. If you haven't, well, there we are. No, he said, I were in the park the other day, painting pictures, you see. Feeding the ducks, I was, and oh, it was a grand day. And when I'd fed the ducks, I thought I'll have a bit of sunshine. So I'm sitting there minding my own business, when suddenly there's a fella comes walking past me, pushing a wheelbarrow full of bushes. I thought, I hope he's going to plant them. I'll watch him, because I like gardening. Yeah, madam, they laughed at that. Well done. You see, anybody with a sense of humour laughs at that line. Usually a hell of a sight louder than that, though. So he stops right in front of where I am, was an empty flower bed, gets on his hands and knees, he gets a trowel, he digs a hole, he gets a bush, he puts it in. He thumbs it round with his fingers, then he writes on a label and he ties it on. Measures about 15 inch, digs another hole, gets another bush, puts it in, thumbs it round with his fingers, writes on a label, ties it on. Another 15 inch, another bush, writes on a label, ties it on. I'm thinking to myself, you better say something to him, he'll think it's funny if you don't talk. So I said to him, how do you do? And he turned around and looked at me right funny. He says, how do you do? I said, now then, old lad, what's them you're planting? He said, roses. Nay, lad, I says, them's not roses. Come on, them's not roses, them's chrysanthemums. He said, the roses. I've been putting them in this bed 40 years. I said, I've been gardening 40 years, old lad. I'm telling you, them's chrysanthemums. He says, the roses. I says, the chrysanthemums. He comes over bagging his finger and he says, I shan't tell thee again. Them's roses. I said, I shan't tell thee again, old lad. Them's chrysanthemums. He says, well, thee write it on then. I says, do you know, now I look at him a bit more closely, I think he might be right. I think And I'll leave you now with, I think, Albert Modley's best story. He said, I went to London once to cup final, and when I coming home, I stopped off at the book for a drink, and there's a fella over there, a Cockney fella, came over to me, and he says, I seem to know your face. Were you ever at army? I said, aye, I was. He said, what regiment? I said, King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry. He says, I've never heard of them. I says, you've never heard of only best regiment in country, old lad? I said, no. He says, I'm not having that. I were the best regiment in country. I were the Coldstream Guard. Oh, I said, are they any good? He said, you what? Are they any good? Haven't you ever seen them marching? I says, no. He says, Coldstream Guards, 500 of them marching sounds like one man. I said, oh, aye. Synchronisation. I'll show you what they sound like. 500 Coldstream Guards marching sound like this. Brum, brum, brum. Brum, 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 brum. I said, very impressive. But if I were the old lad, I'd get yourself up to Rotherham and have a listen to King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry marching. Because this is what 500 of them sound like. Brum, brum, ching, ching, brum, brum, ching, ching, brum, brum, ching. I said, hang on a minute, old lad. What's all chink, chink about? I said, them's medals, lads. Thank you very much.